My name is Amy DeLong, and I have been invited to introduce tonight's speaker, and it is my privilege and honor to do so. I think it's fair to say that 2020 was a hell of a year for Thomas Smith and Krista Spieler when, in quick succession, their lives were upended by two medical emergencies. On the night before Christmas Eve, Thomas was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and less than 24 hours later, Krista suffered a profound and debilitating stroke. Where is Chris? Oh, there you are, dead center, front and center. And with that stroke, Krista began her wild ride, filled with seemingly insurmountable obstacles and uncertainty and setbacks and excruciatingly difficult work. And it was grim for a long time. And we didn't know for certain, Krista, if you would return to your full self again. And I'm not going to say that Krista fought and clawed her way back, because those are too violent of words for this peace-loving woman. But I will say that she Krista'd her way back, right? Slowly, I may never, you keep clapping, I'm never going to sit down, right? Slowly and gradually and really intentionally, once her body and her brain started communicating again, she had to relearn almost everything, and that road was not linear, right? It meandered and it curved and it twisted, but fortunately not all who wander are lost. Krista, in very typical Krista style, showed resolve and a strength and a persistence that belies her laid-back hippie exterior. And after 3 months, by God, she walked back into their house through the front door on her own 2 feet. And when Krista suffered that stroke, Thomas set aside his own diagnosis, and on Krista's behalf, he was tossed headlong into the unfamiliar world of doctors and hospitals and bedside vigils. And he became Krista's interpreter and her voice and her advocate and her encourager and her tether to a world and a life we all prayed that she would one day return to. And with guitar in hand, he helped sing her back to life. To say that Thomas rose to the occasion would be a gross understatement. I was so impressed with how he was able to discern, sometimes almost instinctively, exactly what Krista needed for her own recovery. And at the same time, he was able to, figure out and identify his own needs. And then he actually had the courage and the strength of character to reach out to others and ask for the help he needed. That is a remarkable role model. And this community of River Falls, many of you in this room stepped up too. Krista could not recover, and Thomas could not be caregiver without the tangible help of many. Friends and family and strangers formed a circle of love and care around them that made healing possible. Medicine Year is a compilation of Thomas's writings, which chronicle that year-long sojourn through the wilderness. And I am amazed, simply amazed, at how Thomas was able to put pen to paper and record all of that in real time. He wrote by Krista's bedside. He wrote when he got home. Thomas, I do not know how you have found the spiritual and emotional and physical energy to process coherently and in poetic form, nonetheless, all that you were going through. In the midst of your own fears and your exhaustion and your uncertainty, you created beauty. This book is testament to Krista's strength, to the incredible of the ability of the body to recover, to her love of life and her desire to return to it, which she has. And this book is testament to Thomas's devotion to Krista, to the depth of his hope, which never flagged, and to the healing power of community and love and the written word. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend Thomas R. Smith.
Amy, would you stay up here and do the rest of the show? Wow, that was fabulous. Wow. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Well, everything that she said was, was real and true. We were in the cloud of unknowing that that time. It was about a 3-month period, and this this book does chronicle that time. Not particularly in what do I want to say? Not in an exhaustive way, though. So we had our disasters, we had our endurances, we had our vigils, and we had our survivals. But in a strange way, and I know this is going to sound odd to you, it was a good year because we didn't die. That was one reason it was a good year. And Krista came home from rehab at Kinnick Care Center toward the end of March, after only about 2 weeks of lockdown. So we were lucky too, because I only had 2 weeks that I had to go around to her window and talk to her through the window because they wouldn't let me in. And we had a sweet time when she came home, and we recovered together, and we had some of the best time that we'd had in years together. So in a strange way, it was a good year. It was a hell of a year. It was a heaven of a year. It sounds like the beginning of a Dickens novel. Oh, yeah. So I'm a very private person, not confessional as writers go. So this is not going to be a heavy medical read. I talk about the basic situation, I tell the capsule version of the story in my introduction to the book, and then I let the reader understand that as the background, as the poems take us through the whole year. So I had a couple of rules for this book, and one of them was that all of the poems would be chronological and dated. I'd never thought of doing something like that before. It seemed like a really kind of gutsy, arrogant thing to do as a poet, because usually it takes about 5 years to write a book of poems. And here I was going to publish a book that was written in 1 year. So be it. I wrote the first 2 poems that are in the book the last week of December 2019, when out of my shock, my good friend Val Zelmer counseled me to keep writing through this and not just succumb to the shock. So I wrote poems the last week of December 2019. Wrote poems all through 2020. Lockdown is and sheltering in place is good for introverts. I wrote over 250 poems, raw poems that year. I think about 75 are in the book, so that's about the ratio of what's good and what's not good. And then just to balance it off, I included 2 poems from the first week of 2021. So, a week on either side of the year 2020, and there you go. So it's a 54-week book, and I hope to never do a book like this again. So, and I noticed that I noticed the other day that the word cancer is written in the book exactly once in the introduction. It's not in any of the poems. Stroke isn't in there too many times either. But you understand the situation. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to take you through a few of the poems in chronological order, and the backstory now. And I just want you to enjoy these as poems. I want you to enjoy these as you would enjoy somebody getting up and singing a concert for you. Wouldn't worry about the sequence too much. But I'll talk a little bit along the way about some of my choices and kinds of poems too. So I'll try not to talk too much though. So here's the first. This was the first viable poem that I wrote after all of this got started. It's called Mississippi John Again. Can you hear me all right? Is this okay? Okay, Mississippi John again. And hurt. Mississippi John hurt. Again. You'll get it. You'll get it. Okay. So it was written December 28th. 28th. I got my diagnosis on the 24th. Krista went into the hospital on the I got my diagnosis the 23rd. Krista went into the hospital the 24th. And this was written the 28th. Okay. Mississippi John again. She was at United in St. Paul at the time. Returning downhearted to the hospital parking ramp, I start the car, and the CD I was playing earlier, Mississippi John Hurt's Today, comes on again. Make me a pallet down soft and low. Make me a pallet on your floor. What was it about John that was so nourishing, even healing to us alienated white kids in the 60s? In a moment of frightening turbocharged change bearing down on us and our world, his voice offered what we longed for, but which adult life we were growing into withheld. An earthy warmness, a human eros, a dignity, a kindness. I suppose that's why I still pull John Hurt off the shelf when I'm feeling empty and forlorn, as I do after this hospital visit. Now I'm feeding the ticket and bills into the pay station lit and tinseled for Christmas. There happens to be an actual person in the booth, and exiting, I turn to wave. An older black man waves back, his face round and heavy-lidded, looking uncannily like those of Mississippi John. I know I must take this as an omen. So that's how I got started. That's how I got the poetry mill churning again. I can't thank everybody enough. I can't thank this community enough. I can't thank our large circle of support and healers enough. So consider yourself included. If I don't name you personally, I'm going to name a few along the way as I go, as it applies to the poems. And one of the great things that happened here in River Falls was Kathy Allen organized a healing circle for us at the Spirit of Grace, what's now the Spirit of Grace Church. And that's when we got to really talk about it as a community. And Krista was having a hard time eating. They were going to put an extra feeding tube in her. It would have only been needed for about another week, but she would have had to have it in for a couple of months. So we got people to sign up to go in and feed her, to drive into United and take care of individual meals. And it was fantastic. And we saved her that extra surgery. It was really a triumph. So Kathy Allen out there, this goes out to you. This is called Krista's Feet. You will put on shoes again. You will bend to tie the laces. You will stand once more on your own volition, on those self-shod feet. Everything that feet do, your feet will do again. You will walk beside our beloved Kinnickinnick in the morning. In winter, your feet will test cautiously the ice. Swelling will go down. Weakness subside. Muscle tone return. The light seed inside each soul that is the spark of dance will grow again with the springtime. You will step lightly, lightheartedly to the music. Earth will again play the happy red carpet to your star stride. Thank you. Thank you. So this is another, by the way, this book really has an arc. As you would expect, the early part into spring really has a lot to do explicitly with recovery, mostly her recovery. I had a hard time writing about my own situation for a long time. It pops up in flashbacks, mostly in the poems. So as you read along, you say, what the hell happened to him? Well, you find out, practically at the end, but I'm still here. So you kind of know. Thank you. So this was written January 28th, about a month later than the first poem. It's called Climbing the Stairs, and it's really a testament to the wonderful staff at Courage Kenny in United Hospital. Climbing the stairs. The PT team, Jen and April, want Krista to try climbing some stairs. We're out on the 8th floor landing, looking up a flight of 10 steps. Krista has been practicing walking in the hallway, but this takes it to a whole new level. She starts shaky, but one woman below her and the other above, she's staying upright, arms stretched wide to grip handrails on both sides. Her hesitations make clear what hard work this is. The top of the flight seems high up indeed, even precarious. I can see her fresh sense of shock in having lost the ability to do this easily, and the scary accomplishment of standing in her weakened state on the summit. Slowly, she arrives there under her own power, by her own effort. But the achievement will not be complete until she turns and steps down again, slowly, her face registering the full mix of fear, exhilaration, and disbelief. Balance weight on handrails, left foot down, then right. And she has reached the 8th floor landing where she started. Later, she tells me, it makes me want to cry, and does. That felt profound, and I'm glad you were there to share it with me. That's her quote. That's her quote. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, I was having the strange experience of, after decades of married life, having to put up with myself for a long period of time. She was out of the house for 3 months. And wow, I didn't know who this person was that I was with for a while. I finally got used to him. And then he changed. So it was kind of a chrysalis period for me, too. This poem is called Living Alone Again for a While. The first week was crushingly lonely, especially the nights. Her absence shouted from every surface, every little thing she'd had a hand in, which over 40 years was almost everything. Gradually, you got used to it. Even in certain moods and moments, relished it. You hadn't been on such good terms with yourself since you were that freewheeling bachelor, the self that had attracted her in the first place. At some point, we must take responsibility for our lives. You know that in the abstract, but it's another matter when you find yourself actually doing it. Washing the dishes, half listening to public radio, only occasionally now noticing the strangeness of this home you did not make alone, but with her collaboration on every detail. A true work of art. And how different it is from where you thought you lived the day before the stroke. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that was kind of the bottom for me. So, February 27th, this poem's called Ordinary Life. And she was out. Wasn't home yet, but she was out. Ordinary Life. Was it Emerson who wrote that marriage is an improvement on love? Today, taking your arm and helping you from the car into Noodles and Company after your follow-up appointment with the cardiologist, I can't tell the difference. In a sunny booth, I tell you how fine it is to simply see you across a restaurant table again, our first such outing in 2 months. Fresh again, as if for the first time. Thousands of meals I took for granted, my mind absent, not seeing or hearing you. Maybe nothing will ever be ordinary like that for us again. And maybe that's a good thing, except what we choose to honor by pretending it's so, while knowing the fragile value of our happiness and how in an instant it can turn into something else. So yeah. So that was the winter. Now as the book moves into spring, we get a little oh, that's very funny. I didn't intend to read that one. My unconscious just jumped in, I guess. So it goes. Good poem is all right. What happens next is the pandemic. And so luckily she was able to come home. A couple of weeks after the lockdown started. It was still March. So like all poets, I started writing about the pandemic. So this is a pandemic poem. It's called The Loneliness, and it's from very early March 19th. I think things locked down around St. Patrick's Day. So it's just a couple of days later. Excuse me. Already a vast loneliness has seeped into our souls with the cancellations and closings. We miss the conviviality of the restaurant table, the church service, the joy of the jamming musicians, the natural camaraderie of sidewalk and supermarket. We're not meant to be alone, not meant to deflect the approach of neighbors. Now each lockdown house becomes a grave where small dismembered pieces of community lie scattered alive, waiting to be called back to wholeness. We ache for each other, ache for contact. We knew it would all break down someday, not sustainable. The center cannot hold. We're being shown something bigger. We are being called to something higher. Shall we come out of this changed, finally able to hear each other's voices across the social distance, the voices drowned out by fear? When the theaters and bars reopen, when the hospital beds are vacant again, and the world resumes its old business of getting and spending, how shall we think on these days, withdrawn from one another and the communal heart, the dead civic air? Will the grief still eat at us as it does now? Is this how it happens? A lesson we need to learn, overshadowing all our other learning? In the enforced quiet, we have space to ask these questions and listen for answers. How will we love each other and ourselves in the upheavals to come? Yeah, and they sure did, didn't they? They were coming. January 6th, 2021 hadn't happened yet. Neither had the election. Some things are better now. So this is called Nature Anyway, and it's another COVID poem. It's dedicated to good friend and healer of ours, Senor Martin Prechtel, in Ojo Caliente, New Mexico. Mayan healer, artist, horseman, writer. Nature Anyway. The air is clean and brisk, and the birds have always insisted on social distancing. And we can still walk out and do the same. It's spring, but the wind is cold, pushes wrinkles across the face of the water. Out on the river, ducks, geese, mergansers, buffleheads contribute heat to the great warming of the seasons. Nature, anyway, goes its way. Do you also have the feeling that somehow it's wiser than we are? That it knows and is trying to show us something we don't? This is a sacred space where whatever has died in us may yet live. So don't succumb to complaining or self-pity. Just try to be present for it. Putting no distance between yourself and the earth, say, I'm ready for you to stand up in me. Say to the trees, make me the springtime. Springtime. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So about that time, we got a lot of help. We got a lot of help from different streams of healing. We had the Western, we had the indigenous, and we had some really good Asian and Chinese healing coming at us too, because it was at the time that I started doing Qigong. My urologist says I'm doing so well because of good genetics, but I say it's the Qigong. Okay. Jeffrey Rediger, who wrote the book Cured, talks about healing one's identity. Sometimes we don't become the person that we intended to be or wish to be or hope to be. And sometimes we have to just throw some things overboard and go back and heal our identity. And I think Qigong helped with that for me. I used to go around carrying the Tao Te Ching in my backpack out on the road. I was fine with that. So this is a little poem, maybe first Qigong poem I wrote. It's called Tiny Poem in the Taoist Manner. The title's longer than the poem. Tiny Poem in the Taoist Manner. Happily writing poems and practicing Qigong. Am I finally becoming the person I used to think I was? All right. Okay. So we're moving right along here, folks. We're really into springtime 2020 now. I wrote a lot of poems about the Kinnickinnick River, just walking along the river, usually, just across from downtown every morning. So this is one of those. It's called Small Turtles Sunning. 4 turtles sun on a fallen trunk a few feet from shore. Painted turtles, the kind I used to catch and keep for pets as a boy. None larger than my spread hand. Their dark shells attract the light. They stick their necks out as far as they can to absorb the spring warmth. What else can they do, clad in all that stiff collar? They spend so much of their lives paddling the chill flow of the river, chasing their shadows over the river bottom. What a pleasure it must be for them to seize a moment in the sun. Let the breeze rippling across the shallows dry their shells. Though we're of the same tribe, I'd prefer, when I go, to be an old tree that turtles can climb up on to warm themselves. All right. Okay. At some point here, I think I absolutely have to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of people here who helped make this book possible in the form that it was. One of them is my publisher, Julie Fitzinger. Julie, raise your hand. Paris Morning Publications. She took a chance on me at the recommendation of a fairly new friend of mine, the poet Danny Klecko, who's a wonderful poet. She's published a couple of his books. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Danny, out there. John Ilg. John Ilg. Would you raise your hand, John? John Ilg. He's the artist who did the cover art. Fabulous. We'd kind of known each other from a distance for a few years, and this this piece of art turned up on a Christmas card that he sent me. I said, God, that's got to be on the cover of my book. And so I'm very grateful to the team that really made this book. Okay, so one of the things that we did in my neighborhood to try to maintain some joy, if not sanity, during the pandemic was my neighbor Colin, who was teaching down in Chicago, but kind of had to come back to River Falls for a while because the school was locked down. And who is an excellent musician, far better musician than I'll ever be. He's 50 years younger than I am. And we'd go out and we'd meet at the back fence, his place back there, our place over here. And we'd keep our distance and we'd play and sing like crazy. And that's one of the ways that we stayed sane. This goes out to Colin. I know you're watching tonight, Colin, from Chicago. This is called Back Fence Jam. It's social distancing time. Oh God, when we don't have to use that phrase anymore, I came up with an alternate phrase, tactical avoidance. It's not as friendly though. It's social distancing time, and Colin and I are having one of our jams by the fence between our houses. Colin is a music teacher, just getting started, and me, I'm trying not to finish too soon. Colin is also a bluegrass whiz on guitar and mandolin, and we're out on a gorgeous spring day, playing and singing our hearts out on the grass, pushing up from below, and the budding trees exploding in slow motion like green fireworks against the clear blue sky. Colin sings The Old Home Place, and I sing Mountain Dew. Often we request favorites of each other, and today Colin asks for Mr. Tambourine Man. I'm always ready to oblige with that Dylan masterpiece, all 4 verses. And this time, a male cardinal at the top of a big basswood tree joins in. He's way up there, warbling and trilling. I listen for him to stop, but he doesn't. He doesn't stop. He knows this song too and keeps singing. My God, aren't we the trio? The neighbors' dogs, meanwhile, are chasing each other around their fenced-in yard. They're having a good old time rolling over on their backs, feet kicking the air. Meanwhile, the cardinal, that red flame tipping the highest branch like a candle, is still trilling. And I want to stop singing and yell to the world, this is a textbook example of happiness. So I do. Then start singing again, because I don't want the cardinal to stop and the song must go on. Virus or no virus, we must find ways to keep singing together, even if only across the back fence, and store such moments away in our bones for those other days sure to come when we find ourselves having to sing out against the silence. So, yeah. There's if you buy the book in one of the end notes, there's a YouTube address for some songs that Colin and Krista and I recorded in that same backyard stage. So you can find us there. So maybe you're getting the impression correctly that this book really has an arc, and it kind of comes out of the darkness of winter, and then it goes into summer and stays there for a while, and then it goes back into winter at the end, another cycle. But I'd say that this book has a green heart. It has a green heart, and it has a huge heart for the natural world, right in the middle of it where it belongs. This is a May poem. It's called Green Eminence. Goes out to my friend, fellow poet, Sue Krause, who I think is probably listening from over by Stillwater tonight. Green Eminence. April never gives us more than we can take. May now, that's another matter. May comes on with her green that makes us forget how somber the earth can be. New leaves are a lime green confetti thrown up in the air, confetti that never comes down. The occasion is every event in your life that can possibly be celebrated all at once. Wedding, graduation, anniversary, birthday, retirement. And it's all for you, and none of it's for you. The heart senses something it has desired and feared come near and then draw back. And suddenly it's summer. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So let's see, how am I doing for time here? Oh, fine. Yeah, I will. So lest you think that the other major events of that year didn't make it into this book, I'm going to give you an example of one. One of the real seismic events was the murder of George Floyd and the uprising that that followed, and the re-examination, hopefully, of the American heart that occasion. I wrote this poem just looking at the pictures. It's called Hand in Pocket, in memory of George Floyd. Remember Orwell's picture of the future in 1984? This is a quote from Orwell. Imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Do black people see in the footage of Chauvin and Floyd a white knee crushing a black windpipe forever? The black man's neck and shoulder are summer bare under the white cop's clothed knee. That should tell you all you need to know about power. Somehow, almost worse, is the cop's leisurely hand in pocket. Why should that detail disturb us so? As though the cop were doing nothing more than rummaging for car keys. Floyd's face is contorted while the cop retains a flat, dispassionate composure. Murder, most casual. The black man soon to die, calling for his mother, his cries for life and breath, not enough to roll the stone from the white cop's eyes. This is a hard poem to write. Hard poem to write. How about a bird poem? Where are you? Where are you, Cedar Wax Wings? Cedar Wax Wings, one of my favorite birds. Where are you? Are you already into? Yes, already into August. Okay, I've skipped over a whole big patch of summer here. We're at August 20th. And by the way, my publisher, Julie, has a anthology of bird poems coming out yet this summer, right? Is that correct? Yeah, what's the name of that?
Still in discussion.
That's not a very good title. All right, but watch for it. So this is called Cedar Wax Wings. This is one of my favorite birds. They're very communal. Cedar waxwings. This morning I thought summer's almost over and I still haven't seen any waxwings. Now I'm standing at one of my favorite spots on the river shore, and here they are, grinning their joy through their little black bandit masks, flitting and cavorting in their clowning manner, always in groups, always keeping up their aerobatics, as if for nothing more than the joy of it, looping and diving among the willows overhanging the water, never staying in one place long. Sometimes the crests standing up on their buffy heads seem to shiver in wild delight. One of those worlds Blake saw closed by our senses 5. grateful to have found them again. I open wide my heart's healing sky to let in their crazy bird air show medicine. So thank you. See, there's all kinds of medicine in this book. That's why it's called Medicine Year. You know, there's animal medicine, there's bird medicine too, there's earth medicine, there's even spider medicine. This poem's called Orb Weaver. Yeah, you know what an orb weaver web looks like? It's just this beautiful round web. It's very fine. You should look it up if you haven't seen one. There it was, deep in the Kinnickinnick woods, hovering like a smoke ring, where young maple and young elm contended for space, so that it was impossible to tell just where it was anchored, where mottled morning sun struck through to light it. At first, I absurdly thought someone had strung a CD in the trees. Flimsy, shimmering, yet dimensional, as the sun above and behind fired red and gold tones into its close concentric grooves. At last, recognizing it for what it was, I could make out the bright bead of the orb weaver's body, working in meticulous circles inward toward the empty center, that perfectly round nothing, so accommodating and yielding to her fine intensity of her plan, her craft. Thank you. It's hypnotic. Okay, you know what? Somebody pointed out to me this is Bloomsday. Okay, you know what Bloomsday is? That's the day that that the whole novel Ulysses by James Joyce took place, June 16th. And I confess I don't have anything ostensibly Irish in this book to celebrate with. But on the other hand, I do have this poem about John Lennon for his 80th birthday. John Lennon and George Harrison were both of Irish descent. And if you look on the map, you'll notice that Liverpool over here is just directly across from Dublin. So Liverpool was a great place for the Irish diaspora of the 19th and early 20th centuries. So that's my tie-in here. This is called John Restored, and it was written for John Lennon's 80th birthday, October 9th. Well, John, you'd have turned 80 today. As fine a fall day as we see in these parts, a day to make one pity the dead, missing this splurge of heavenly gold. What are we to make of this birthday that 40 years ago became an anniversary? What's to say? It hasn't been said already. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. Is that what we're left with? Your death resists sense, and for that matter, so does your life. It was a gift, and gifts aren't to be made sense of. They're to be accepted. Just as faithfully as the unseen immune defenses in our bodies, your songs will go on protecting and healing. They're part of our spiritual body now, the world immune system that is always moving to act against threats of the times. Spoiler alert, folks. Near the end of the film yesterday, that fantasy of a world that has lost its collective memory of the Beatles, the protagonist drives out to a cottage near the sea, presumably near Liverpool. The camera pans slowly past windows, tantalizes with glimpses of oddly familiar drawings inside. An artist lives here. When our hero knocks, the aging man who comes to the door is unmistakably John Lennon, an older John who, by being forgotten by the world, has been therefore allowed to live. That moment shocks the film deeper, touches the longing we feel for the lost good to return. And here he is, straight out of that heart of longing. John restored to the elder we dream he might actually have become, seasoned by the wisdom of that half lifetime taken from him. No way to know who he'd have finally turned out, what gifts still to be given from new self-knowledge. Who knows where they'd have gone together? Two artists who'd mastered the everyday art of starting over. On this day, when John Ono Lennon, you'd have turned 80, we can only imagine. By the way, if you're in town, Sunday, December 4th, come down to this room in the afternoon. We're going to do our 11th annual tribute to John Lennon and the Beatles in music and poetry. Mark your calendar. Okay, I'm gonna wind up with maybe about 4 more poems here. We're in the fall here now. We're in the fall, so the poems they had a lot of shadowiness when the book started out, and then like the summer solstice sun, the poems get brighter and brighter into the middle, and kind of start to mellow through the fall times, and pretty soon it's heading toward winter time again, which was very fraught for Krista and me, because here we were coming around to that time again. But before we got there, we had a wedding anniversary on October 19th, and this poem's called Basswood Leaves, on our 35th wedding anniversary. October is hasting toward November. More sky now, more room for light to get in. The basswood drops its great heart-shaped leaves on the path, each a Valentine at our feet. Why do I feel so certain that they fall without regret, without sadness, that instead they're love notes from the earth? This is the season of revelation. Our vision less occluded, we see better what was always there, hidden in plain sight, which we've hidden from ourselves. Can it be that the soul does not grieve, but loves this fall time for the joy of what it will make next from the art materials of this world? Is it an artist in us who sings through the melancholy of autumn leaves? Just as the basswood tree will bring back its heart-shaped leaves, surely some branch on the tree of the universe will know how to make a heart like yours, a heart like mine. Thank you. All right. All right. Well, it has to be. It's an anniversary poem. Right. All right. So I'm just going to touch very briefly on the winter section here. As we approach what I call somewhere in this book our dread anniversaries. I wrote a series of poems called Advent Candles. In Advent, there are 4 weekly themes: hope, peace, joy, and love. I'm not sure I got them in the right order. No? What is it? Hope, joy, peace, love? No? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so this is hope. This is hope. Wind shakes bare branches against darkening clouds. The garden whirligig dances madly on the graves of the flocks. We know now how shock can enter the seasons, and how precious each day, able and upright, in this world of trouble. Hope is the candle we light. Beginning again, the new journey. Come round again, from death into rebirth of the year. the celebration of the Holy Child, inextricably bound to the ritual dismissal of the ancient we feel sorry for, his promise outworn, if not betrayed. Strike a match. There's still much for which to be grateful as we stand together in the evergreen circle. We have many steps yet to take, many miles yet to travel into the dark and the light, and absolutely no reason to believe we'll be abandoned now. Okay. Thank you. And there's 3 more of those Advent poems in here. So should be. Yeah, peace. What's that? Aha. You should, it should be right because I got it from you. Okay. So just, 2 more poems here, 2 more poems. And then James has a good supply of this book over there. I am glad to sign copies. It's one of the reasons that we publish books in the first place, just so we can practice our penmanship. This poem is called "Who Heals," and this was something that I contemplated all year long. That was part of my healing of my identity, just to try to get healthy again. I always write a poem on New Year's Eve, and usually they're just kind of crappy. Often, not always. This one turned out pretty well. And I was very conscious at that time that I was ending a book. By then I knew this was going to be a book, and I kind of knew the structure. And so I was on the spot. I had to come up with some good poems at the end. It's called "Who Heals?" Who heals? And who is healed? It's a question. I don't want to wish this year over, because it was a year when we didn't die. Anyway, it's unwise to wish your time away. Think of those who said, "Good riddance to 2019. We walk the road of this moment between the best and worst we can imagine. We don't know what lies waiting up ahead, but we do know that we're not unaccompanied, not without help. There are healers both within us and without us, of whom we know nothing. The intensity of their light can be frightening. How would it feel to wholeheartedly wish ourselves well, be willing to doctor the parts of ourselves that make us sick? Do we have the courage to stand up to the voices that tell us there's only bad luck, loss, a horrible end? Do we have the courage to be kind to our past, forgive the missteps that have led to the cliff's edge from which we back away? Can it be we're afraid of knowing ourselves so powerful? If only we could trust the way we've come so far and answer the questions: who is healed and who heals? Okay. Thank you. That's a big challenge to myself. So I want to thank you all for coming out, and I just want to thank you all near and far. I know there's people in Utah, there's people in New York that are tuning into this, and people who will watch it later on. And I want to thank you all for the good help that you've given us. Okay, so that was New Year's Eve. I wrote that poem. So this is a dream I had that night. So I wrote this poem on New Year's Day. And it's a little prose poem, and it's a little premature, but it'll happen someday, if not now. It's called Yellow Ferris Wheel. In the dream, it was summer, luxury of freedom from winter clothes and green of treetops burgeoning beyond the storefronts of Main Street. The town swarming with high-spirited crowds in a holiday mood. The naturalness of it seemed unaccountably strange, as if the old life had passed into myth, and those mythic times reborn. Suddenly, I understood it was our city's annual summer festival returned after last year's cancellation. Rides were going up, and right here in the downtown supermarket's parking lot, carnies were erecting a bright yellow Ferris wheel, its paint new, shiny, glazed in sunlight. I exclaimed to Krista, "Oh, it must be over." And so it was. No masks, no fear, no physical distancing. There was something of childhood in our happiness over those yellow spokes growing up toward the sky. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Ooh, thank you. You know that I realized that long after the fact, those yellow spokes, that was an image of sunrise. That was sunrise coming up. Yeah. Yeah. Good. I'll be over here.